Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this very important topic on the 2020 census. Today is really all about you and how we, as a city of Seattle and King County, can partner with you, members of the media, to be able to educate our communities about an incredibly important topic. The city and county will be available to answer any questions that you may have and also provide you with additional resources on how to access additional in-language translations and other types of materials that you may need. So we are at a turning point in our country. We have the option to choose to be an inclusive and welcoming community where everyone matters. And we have the option to do that despite what our president is doing right now. And so as the city of Seattle and King County, we are committed to making that choice, to making sure that everyone deserves to be counted and everyone in our community counts. I want to be really clear. The federal administration has tried repeatedly to undercount or not count individuals. And this has been done very deliberately. This is because they want to make sure that communities of color, LGBTQ communities, people who are experiencing homelessness, and other communities who are less likely to be in community, but in sort of in access with government, that they don't get counted. But we reject that idea. And the purpose of our work and our investments in partnership with King County and with Seattle Foundation is to ensure that everyone gets counted. So I want to talk a little bit about what we are doing in this space. So we know for sure that the federal government won't be providing any resources to make sure that we have a complete, safe, and fair census count, and that cities and counties will need to step up in this fight to make sure that people are counted. This is why we have partnered with King County and the Seattle Foundation to launch a $1 million regional census fund to help our community organizations do the important work of organizing people for the 2020 census. Our community organizations are leading the way on this important work, reaching out and helping to restore trust that has been broken by this federal administration. One of our priorities as a city is to help our community organizations conduct outreach to communities that have been historically undercounted. These communities include communities of color, immigrants and refugees, our neighbors experiencing homelessness, people with disabilities, the LGBT community, children under 5, Native communities, renters, and students. You, as members of ethnic media, are an incredibly vital resource for us to reach these communities. You are trusted community messengers and leaders, and we need your help to make sure that everyone knows their rights and can be counted. This is why today, I am excited to announce that the City of Seattle will invest $50,000 over the next few months in ethnic media funding for the census. I'm also hopeful, yes, thank you. I'm also hopeful that our partners at County will help support this effort and join us. Director Andres Mantilla will have more details on the distribution of these funds later on this afternoon. Once again, I want to thank everyone for being here, for your commitment to making sure we have a fair and accurate 2020 census. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matthias from the King County. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. My name is Matthias Valenzuela. I'm the Director of the Office of Equity and Social Justice. In King County, it's great to see so many familiar faces and really advocates for our community here today. In terms of media and ethnic media, it's a issue and a topic very close to my heart. I actually started my career in journalism. I worked as a journalist in college, but then in Central America, my first years out of college. So I know how important it is to actually lift the voices and amplify the voices and serve those communities of those who normally don't get served or don't get heard. So it's critically important, and I so value the work that you all do here in our region. So thank you for the work that you do. And I think the census is a critical issue, as already our deputy mayor, Seattle deputy mayor was saying. But first, in terms of our region, and I think some of you already know some of these things, but how quickly our region is changing. Our communities of color, and our immigrant communities, our fastest growing communities. We already, we talk about being a majority people of color country and region. We're already, in terms of youth and children, we're already there. We're more than 50% are youth of color in King County. For our immigrant and refugee community, they're already making up, it's our fastest growing population and make up a quarter of King County residents and quickly growing. So it's very clear where the direction of our region is going and how important it is to work with communities of color and immigrant and refugee communities. Right now, though, that's just was said, it's not business as usual. We know that communities of color, immigrant refugee populations are really under threat at a national level. So I think we are proud that here locally, as King County, similar to the city of Seattle, we have stood very strong to make both racial equity and protecting immigrants and refugees a priority of our local and regional governments. We're also telling our immigrant and refugee populations, you belong here, and we want to make sure you have a place here in King County. Our King County executives, my boss's vision is to create a King County where that's a welcoming community where every person can thrive. And so that is why we are here. We have heard some, and we'll continue to hear why the census is so important, but this particular one is so important, but also full of challenges. King County is proud to sponsor or be a partner with the Seattle Foundation and also the City of Seattle on so many things that we're doing right now. And thanks for the city for hosting this at your site today. We have partnered with the city on the Regional Census Fund, the King County Regional Census Committee, really trying to provide resources to community partners and to connect stakeholders from across the state and region to the groundbreaking 2020 census work that is happening right here in our area. We hope to have at least one more of these convenings before the Census Day 2020, which is going to be April 1st, as we continue to build momentum, especially at this time in which the census has been politicized and devalued at the highest levels of government. So King County is stepping up in many ways, as are the City of Seattle, Seattle Foundations, and others, including you. One of the things, I'm not going to go through the long list, but just one thing, for example, is we have been focusing our resources in the south area of the county, where we have the highest numbers of people of color, immigrant and refugees, and also where we have the highest needs. That's where we need to be focusing on. So we're putting particular attention there. Today, we want to hear from you about how we can best partner with and support your organizations to promote and have a robust and accurate 2020 census. We know that we can't do this critical work without you. And we thank you again for being here and sharing your feedback on and recommendations how we can best work together on the Census 2020. So thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? I wish you could all sit here because you guys look beautiful. And what a great opportunity to talk to all of you at one room. This is very exciting. So gracias, thank you for coming. I am here to introduce you next to a person in the community who has been working on the census from the Census Bureau as our census specialist for the region. This is a woman who has been all around the state, not only Seattle, but calls and shows up every time. And we know that the Census Bureau this time around has, like Matias said, has many challenges. And the people who are having the most challenges at the moment happen to be, again, the people who are the trusted community messengers. One of them is, most of them are a lot of women of color. And I just want to give a big round of applause for all the women in the room who take it personally to share information, no matter if you get paid or if it's your job. So I just want to give a big... And because of that, I want to introduce you to Francesca Valera, who I always pronounce her last name as Latina, even though she is my prima Filipina. And she's going to talk to us about what the census is all about and the basic facts of it. And we'll have time for questions at the end of the program. But please welcome Francesca.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Elsa, for your kind words. And thank you so much to King County and City of Seattle for inviting us here. I also want to give just a warm shout out to the Census family who is growing. And I'm so happy that we're recruiting our people from the community. Our census field managers are here, Tony Ives and Sanjay Purnell. We've got Elena Valera, Congressional Partnership Specialist, and Alvaro Guillen and Noel Piersa. So just wanted to also recognize that I'm also here with our family. And I also want to thank and just recognize Elsa and Matias and the community, King County, Cali, and also Vanessa, Heidi, for all the work that you're doing, and for all of you as community partners. Thank you for all of your dedication and commitment to ensuring that our communities are included and that we have an accurate count. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the 2020 census. I know many of you are already familiar with that. So just to start, and I know we have a timekeeper. Great. So as everyone knows, April 1st is Census Day, and we're 151 days away from this important day. I just want to say that the census is the largest peacetime mobilization when all the communities come together and walls break down, and we come together for an effort to ensure that our communities are included and are counted in the 2020 census. Our mission as Census Bureau employees is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. Why we do a census? So as we're mandated by the Constitution to count everyone once, and only once and in the right place, but we do this only once every 10 years. So we have one opportunity to get this right. We have one opportunity to make sure that all our communities are aware of this process and that they're included in the decennial census. It's mandated by the Constitution, but it helps to align and to apportion our reapportionment of our 435 seats in the House of Representatives. It's for our school districts. It's for our legislative districts, our voting districts. In 2010, we surpassed the national average, and our response rate was 76%, and the national average was 73%, and we were able to gain 1 congressional seat. So we want to make sure that we have a voice in Congress, and that continues. It also helps to allocate a fair share of our federal funding. For this time around, it can be over $675 billion per year for the next 10 years. And what does that look like? These federal programs there's 55 of them that many we know are recipients of some of these. Our Medicaid and Medicare depends on it. Our Section 8 housing, all our senior centers, our SNAP and WIC, our food stamps, our Apple Health. All of that is based on having an accurate count and ensuring that we get enough funding for our state and for our communities. And all of our transportation infrastructures. If we look at 2010, we can see how much our transportation has changed and how housing has gone up. That's all based on taking the decennial count and having to project for the next 10 years so that we have enough services and enough housing, and that our infrastructures can help and be able to provide for all of the community. What's new for this 2020 census? So in 2010, we were only able to fill out the form through the paper traditional form, but also to get telephone assistance. This time around, you can fill out the form in 3 ways. It'll be available online, and then by phone through telephone assistance, and also we will still have the traditional paper form. What's also new this year is that our field workers are able to have mobile devices to make the process faster, because before we used to have to go around and take a clipboard and they'd have to update the addresses or do the enumeration with just that. So now we're trying to become more efficient by having mobile devices for our field workers. There are only 10 questions for this decennial census, and the citizenship question is not on the form. And it has already been printed, so our census forms has already started printing as of July. So these are the 10 questions. Can everyone see this in the back, or should I read it out? Yes? Oh, great. Okay. So address and rent, whether you rent or own your own home, the phone number, and a place for each person that they can fill out the name for each person that lives in the residence. Name, gender, age and date of birth, our Hispanic origin, race, and whether someone lives somewhere else, and then the people who live there, their relationship to the household owner. Now, we have several initiatives through our partnership program where we focus on the traditionally undercounted communities. These are historically based on census data and other data that they are found to be historically undercounted populations. And many, I'm not going to be able to list all of them, but there is our migrant farm workers, our foreign-born population, our emerging populations, and immigrants and refugees, our veteran community, those experiencing homelessness, those are unhoused and non-traditional type of housing. Our children, our seniors, and our LGBTQIA community, and many of our renters. These are just some of the list of those that have been historically undercounted. Now, all the data that's collected by the Census Bureau is private and confidential. By law, all data that's collected remains confidential for 72 years. And all data that we protect is protected under Title 13, which means we cannot share information with ICE or any other federal agencies, Social Security, the driver's license, any of the federal agencies, FBI, CIA. We cannot share information with any other agencies. All the data that's sent out or that's reported will be stripped off of personal identifiable information, and it only comes out in aggregated statistical format. Any penalties for breach of confidentiality would result in 5 years in jail and $250,000 in fines, or a combination of both. And I'm gonna rush through because I only have a few minutes, but the online will have 12 other languages other than English. And then the paper form will be available in Spanish and English. And then we have a language guide of 59 other languages when we do our questionnaire assistance centers, and through also assistance through working with our community organizations. We will have a language guide. Now, there's so many types of enumeration. We have enumerations focused on special populations, such as those experiencing homelessness, like through service-based enumeration, and those in group house settings, which is called group quarters. And those are people that are living like in dorms, correctional facilities, detention centers, any type of group homes. And last but not least, there is a schedule for when the census forms or the census letters start to go out. Each household will receive up to 5 notices. They can receive up to 5, but they don't have to. But all the staggered mailing will start as of March 12th. And March 23rd is when the online portal will be open. And then all reports are due to the president as of December 31st, 2020. And then all of the results will be open to the public by March 31st of 2021. And also, please, when after today or after this session, please stop by our recruiting table. We are needing to hire thousands of listers and enumerators. Our field workers are who we're focusing on right now, so please help our recruitment efforts. Help us to be able to hire folks from the community, because we want people to look like us, to be representatives of the communities that we serve. So please help us stop by our recruitment table out in the front. And then this is my contact, and thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you again.
Hello, good afternoon. I think it's afternoon. My name is Heidi Park. I work for the Office of King County Executive Dow Constantine as their 2020 Census Coordinator. And we will be heading into our first panel here on local government efforts and partnerships. So if I could have Alvaro, Lisa, Aaron, and Callie come up to the table. Okay. So if I could have you introduce yourselves, we'll start with Callie.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Hi, everyone. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Callie Knight. I am the Deputy Director of External Relations in Executive Constantine's office, and I'm working with my awesome team, Heidi, Matthias, and Michael Padilla on the census efforts in King County. It's great to see you all here today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today for our presentation. My name is Álvaro Guillén, and I'm a media specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Lisa McLean, the 2020 Census Coordinator for the state of Washington.
Hello, I'm Aaron Robertson, Managing Director of Policy and Civic Engagement at Seattle Foundation, a community foundation serving King County.
Okay, let's have a round of applause for them. All right. All right, we're going to start with our first question. From your organization's perspective, what is the role of ethnic media in the 2020 census efforts? Who'd like to start us off? Okay, Alvaro.
I have worked with the ethnic media for about 14 years, and the role of ethnic media is to get the word out to their communities, their target audiences that they serve, on the importance to their own communities on responding to the census in 2020. The ethnic media locally is the most trusted media organizations within their communities. They have been serving their audiences for so many years, and we count on them to spread the word about responding to the census. They are trusted for many years by their audiences, and they are the right and the best partners we can think to share the information on the census.
Awesome. So I also manage the community ad budget in Executive Constantine's office. So I work a lot with ethnic media on ads for special programs and holidays when Executive Constantine wants to put a message in one of the ethnic media outlets. For the census, however, I think I see, and our team has talked about ethnic media being a key constituency and stakeholder. You are the liaisons between community and local government, and the best messengers to get out the count, so to speak. And so we're excited, to partner and support and hear from you about what the needs are and how we can best allocate our resources. King County has a budget that the County Council approved for translation and interpretation and outreach activities. And so if there are ways that the county can support that work with you all, please do let us know.
I think in addition to the kind of understanding of culture and language and history that you all have in the specific communities that you work in, there's a reality that with this census, we are grappling with a lot of fear in community about what it means to share their information, give their data to the government. And we have heard the commitments from the Census Bureau in terms of what they're going to use that information for, but that does not necessarily address what is being felt in communities. So in our partnership with the state and the county and the city, as well as with our work with some of the community organizations that are coming up on this panel next, we have really tried to get resources in the hands of community-based organizations that have that trust and relationship in community in order to be able to talk about the importance of the census in a way that will be believed by the communities that we know have historically been undercounted. Ethnic media is one of those sources that's really critical in terms of getting the word out, because coming from you all, it's going to be trusted and believed in a way that it won't coming from folks outside of their communities.
Lisa?
I think everybody said it very well. I don't need to take up time on this question. Yeah, I agree with everybody and echo it.
Great, thank you. We like to hear from all our panelists today, so thank you, Lisa. And moving on to our last question here, what are the most critical efforts or actions your organization is taking to promote the census? Lisa, do you want to kick off?
That's the one I was prepared for. Oh, okay. So obviously, my job is to staff the statewide complete count committee. And I think that what that is about kind of echoing what Aaron said, is trying to make sure that the entire population has the information that they need and that they feel empowered to deliver that information to their communities, and that they have the resources to deliver them and the knowledge to deliver that. So I would say that sort of I think of myself as having like maybe 3 roles. Large roles is obviously staffing the complete count committee. Second thing is supporting the work of the grassroots through, as I think all of you know, the state legislature appropriated $15 million, and we are committed to getting close to 90% of that down to the grassroots level, because we very much understand that this is about trying to get trusted messengers to speak to their own communities and convince their own communities that the benefits of filling out the census, of being counted, are significant, and that only they can convince people to participate in the census. As I always like to say, is Jay Inslee yelling at us from the television screen telling us to fill out our census forms is probably not going to be as effective as you all saying that. So I think that that's one of the things, obviously, that I'm managing a lot of the contracts and trying to manage some of this grant process that we're doing. The second thing is just as a state, we are, and we, a long time ago, back in August last year when I got hired, we created a logo, and now we're kind of creating some materials that go along with that. We're actually just about to send out an email to all of the cities and all of the counties to say if they want our materials, they can have copies of our materials. They just need to tell us how much stuff they have. And I brought a big calendar here for you to see. I mean, a big little thing. This is our basic posters are like this. We actually have something neat that I hope you all are going to want. It's basically, we're putting a decal that you can put on the car, and I promise you, it will come off. We have proven that it can come off the car. A basic 2-pager, and then also a brochure and some other banners and stuff. So we're going to make this available to the cities and the counties, and of course I'd make it available to you all, but I also know that there's other organizations working on stuff, and so we can also give resources to other organizations to make sure that they're replicable. So that's just one thing that we are trying to do to make sort of something of a public face for the census. I would also say that one of our themes here is basically it takes 10 minutes to answer 10 questions that'll affect the next 10 years of your life. So that's something that we've kind of settled on, trying to make to say it's important, it's easy, and, well, we don't have safe in there, but that's one of our messages too. And then I think the other thing that I spend a lot of time doing is trying to coordinate and create synergies. So when I hear that you're doing something, then I was just talking to somebody the other day on the telephone where they were talking about wanting to work with Somali community and the Latino community in South King County, and I was just rattling off the names of people who are also doing that type of work. So creating that type of connection to make sure that we shouldn't be all reinventing the wheel in our own little holes, but rather, in fact, hopefully that we can all come together and build on that which other people are doing. So if you like this and you want to put your own logo on it, you can do that. If you need something that's on our website that you see that's been produced by us and has our logo on it, that means it came out of probably my computer, so you can have the words. You don't need to rewrite the words if you want to translate those words. And we're going to be doing other things like that that will be available. So that's what we feel that we're doing and what we feel our role is.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Anyone else?
I can go.
Alvaro?
Conducting the census is one of the largest operations of the U.S. government. It's a huge work, and what is very important, something that we are doing, is we are hiring 2.7 million people to help us conduct the census in 2020. So that's a part that right now we are in the peak operation, in the operation of hiring locally. At this point, we are hiring people to work as enumerators, or census takers. So again, staffing is one thing that we are doing, and is key, it's very important, and we are doing that obviously locally as well. Something else that we are doing is reaching out and establishing partnerships with trusted voices within our communities, and we are establishing thousands of partnerships with local organizations and across the nation to help us conduct the census in 2020.
Thank you. Callie?
Hey, everybody. So for King County, I think one of the first efforts that we undertook was starting conversations with the philanthropic partners around the county to talk about how are we going to get money out the door to community so that they understand the messages that are best in their communities. A message that works within an immigrant and refugee population is not the best message for the Black and African American community. So how do we just get the dollars out the door so that folks can do what they already know how to do with the folks that they trust in their communities? So the Regional Census Fund was an effort that we partnered with City of Seattle and Seattle Foundation with. What you haven't heard is that since we announced it in April, the cities of Bellevue, Kirkland, and Redmond also made contributions to become funding partners, and we're really happy. We are reviewing applications from the second round right now, and we'll have money out the door before Thanksgiving so that folks can continue doing that critical work. We also know that we need to get our internal organizations ducks in a row, so we've convened an interbranch team that has all of our county departments and most of the separately elected offices, and we asked them to do something similar to Affordable Care Act enrollment that we did in 2010, which was, what are the touch points you have with our residents and your clients? How can you leverage those networks and those touch points to promote the census and educate about the census? So if you got one of the local voter pamphlets in the mail in the last couple of weeks, there's a page in that pamphlet that's all about getting out the census count. The property tax bills will have census information on them. King County Metro is working on bus ads. So we're really trying to figure out what are some of the touch points that we have that we can leverage as a county to be good partners in the work and not just put the onus on community to be doing the work.
Great. Sorry, we're going to wrap up. We're running a little over time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, Erin, that's all I'll say. Any questions I can answer.
Wrap us up here quick?
Yeah, so
thank you.
As philanthropy, our role is really stewarding resources into community-based nonprofits and letting them design the strategy. We are the host for the Regional Census Fund that you've heard a lot about, both administering the fund and doing fundraising to bring additional resources into it. We also partner with Philanthropy Northwest, who is leading a similar effort through the Washington Census Equity Fund that is hitting the other parts of the state, which we know are critical to be counted as well. And we are proud to partner with the Washington Census Alliance, a community-based coalition you'll hear more about shortly on advocating for more resources from local government and doing what we can as philanthropy to step in and help facilitate those resources, reaching the small and grassroots organizations that often cannot handle the administrative burden of large public contracts.
Great. Thank you, Erin. We have time for one or just one question. We're running a little behind, so. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you. And I'm going to introduce Elsa to bring on the next panel.
I realize, hello, thank you. Thank you, everybody, thank you. I realized I didn't say my name, like, oh, you guys all know me. My name is Elsa Batres-Boni. I work for the City of Seattle. I'm housed at the Department of Neighborhoods. And I am very excited to be helping lead all census-related topics. I don't know what I'm going to talk about after the census is done. But what I am very excited to talk to you about now is So the census is a great opportunity to see who are the players where and who does what. So as you could see, we first had the City of Seattle Deputy Mayor, and then King County with Director Matias here talking to us. This is about local cities. Now, then we had Francesca, who works for the Census Bureau. So that's the federal government, city government, and of course, we had representatives here too, like Lisa McLean from the state. So all different levels of government are supporting the effort of census. It is a government activity operation that needs the support from community-based organizations and of course ethnic media and everybody else. And for that, we want to now hear and have you guys listen to some of the people who have been organizing and doing work around census for a long time now, since last year, some of them. And I'm going to call you by name. A lot of you know, but the idea for this piece is to hear from them what are their organizations doing for census, what are the messages that they are sharing with their communities. And in general, the idea is for everyone to connect the dots and to understand who's doing what in census. So at the end of that, we'll have another time for you all as media to talk about what are the best strategies that we should be following. So I am going to call my colleague, Joaquin Uy from the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, and you all know him because he sent you all the emails and invitations. So please welcome him with a round of applause. Then I want to introduce you to the director of the Washington Census Alliance, Kamau Chege, who has been organizing throughout the state from this community-based organizations. And then I'm going to introduce you another fantastic woman, leader of color, who has been doing many different work, not just for the census, from Mujer al Volante, Jacqueline Garcia. Please welcome her to the podium. I am also going to introduce you the Executive Director of Ventures, Business Owners, Beto Yarce. Please come to the table. The Board Chair of APACE and my colleague, Stanley Sack. Please welcome him from APACE. And of course, not last but least, my really dear friend, Juan Fernando, Civic Engagement Manager for Entre Hermanos. Please welcome. Oh my gosh, is it?
Oh. Should I move over? Oh.
You were going to kill me. Okay. We really want you to hear from all of them. We had them, right? Okay. We like to do this tight. So the questions I have for you, thank you for being here. And what we're going to do, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. So I'm going to ask the question, and then you're going to answer it. And I introduce you, so you don't have to just say your name. You can say hi if you want to. But what I want you to share with us is, can you please tell us what are the challenges you have identified with your community to participate in the 2020 census? And from the organization from you, where you work. So can we start with Luis Fernando, since we met you? I'm sorry, Juan Fernando, my dear friend, and I change your name. Go for it.
Hi. Well, one of the challenges for the Census 2020 from my perspective and from the organization that I work for, Entre Hermanos, has been the fear factor. The citizenship question created so much fear and unconfidence on the information that is being captured through the census, that the community is being like a, is being a growing sort of untrust of providing, responding to the 10 questions. I think the current administration has created so much fear around with other topics that are going on in the community that it's being very hard to dismantle all the lies and all the myths that the citizenship question initially created. So dismantling all that is being basically the big part of the work that we're doing. And how we're doing it? We're doing it, be present with the community, engaging the community on one-on-one media. We have our own radio station, so we are persistent with the message that there is no danger responding to the Census 2020, and how crucial it is for our community now more than ever to participate, to get counted, because as the census representative mentioned, it is the bottom line for our community. Our streets, our parks, our schools, our health systems, our community-based systems, they're all derived from federal budgets that are allocated through the Census 2020. So working with the community, making sure that they understand that it's safe, the Census 2020 is safe, that everyone needs to be counted, and how that directly affects our lives on the daily basis.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the other end and ask my colleague Joaquin Uy to speak on behalf of the City of Seattle. What is our challenges and message?
I think often the challenge is that I see a lot of nonprofits and government agencies. I work a lot with, for instance, the Washington Department of Transportation and intergovernmentally to help departments and campaigns with ethnic media outreach and engagement. So sometimes I'll be facilitating an ad buy, but it'll be for a different government agency, which is why some of you in the audience probably know that we just helped move about $30,000 to ethnic media outlets for the Seattle Squeeze, which is tolling in, by the way, tolling begins in the 99 tunnel on November 9th, in case you're not sure. Please spread the word. And I think that one of the obstacles I see is that a lot of agencies and nonprofits will try to take a one-size-fits-all approach to bilingual or media outlets that communicate in a language other than English. And you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach at all. I mean, there are language and cultural norms, cultural idioms, cultural symbols that differ from community to community. Obviously, that's a given. And not only that, but there's differences in the outlets themselves. And any individual here will tell you that an outlet that is maybe 2 or 3 people that's a monthly is going to be very different from a daily that's connected to an outlet that's located in a country outside the US. And so you have to have a lot of knowledge about how different groups work, what messages work, and starting from a place where you take copy or you take text that's already in English, and then you try to just translate that and say that that's an ad, that's deficient. That's just not going to work, and that, I think, time and again has shown that it leads to misunderstandings, and it doesn't lead to the outcomes that I think departments want to see. And so a lot of international marketing firms and now governments are starting to try to focus on what's called transcreation, and that's really developing the campaign specific and accountable to that community from the ground up. So you're not just starting with English language with American tropes or whatever that is, or Eurocentric or white supremacist tropes. You're starting with languages, symbols, norms that are indigenous to that community. And it's slow going, because we all know government moves pretty slow, but we're trying, and we need your help to make that happen. And I also just want to point out that my new colleague, Peggy Liao, is here. She's our Language Access Program Policy Specialist, and she is going to be helping our office really move forward with pushing the boundaries on transcreation and hopefully moving the entire city towards more transcreation type policies. So I think that is a big one, and I think Another one that's a big challenge is that the Trump administration has done so much to really limit immigrants and to harm and to using harmful rhetoric to intimidate immigrants. And it's immigrants of all statuses, immigrants who are trying to get into this country through the consuls, immigrants who are already here, and immigrants of all statuses. And it's so complicated, all the different attacks that are happening. The city of Seattle, as you might have heard, is suing the Trump administration because they're trying to make it difficult for low-income immigrants to apply for citizenship. That's just one of at least 15 policies that I can name off the top of my head that the Trump administration is trying to do to harm immigrants. And it's really tiring to keep track and to really try to fight those. I mean, we're down. Of course, we're hecka down, but it's so hard to translate that really difficult and complicated policy into language that folks can understand. It's jargony, and there's a lot of acronyms, there's a lot of government agencies, and so I think the other challenge, both for English-speaking audiences and for immigrant communities, is to really convey the impact of these policies, like public charge, like the fee waiver, like making sure immigrants have health insurance before they enter the country, making sure that people understand, one, what the policy is, two, whether or not it actually affects them, that's the other difficult part, and three, that they know where to go to get their questions answered, which usually is a BIA-accredited representative or an immigration attorney. And as we also all know, they're in short supply as well. And so, I don't mean to say this as like, oh my God, everything's terrible, because community and government has come together for some really amazing wins in this arena, in this work. But it just means that we all need to step up and be a little bit more incisive and thoughtful about how we communicate this to the communities we're trying to serve.
Thank you, Joaquin. So I'm gonna just tell them who's going. So I'm gonna do Stanley and then Jacqueline and then come out, and then we'll end with Beto. But I want to introduce you to Stanley, and can you please tell us a little bit about your organization? Where
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Elsa. I'll keep this short. My name is Stanley. I work with APACE, a Asian American and Pacific Islander organization. I think, if we talk about the main challenge, I think from my perspective, looking ahead in the next 6 months working on census, is that our community is so diverse. We literally have people from, say, Pakistan to the Pacific Islands, and we deal with 100 languages. And so I think the main challenge for our organization is look at what groups or population we should focus upon and do extra work on because I think I guess the question to pose to all of you here from the ethnic media perspective is that some of the population, particularly with the Asian American community, we know that the Chinese community, Korean community, Vietnamese community, just to name a few, are bigger. There are a lot more community resources, ethnic media, for instance, today, looking around the room, are well represented. But then, so in terms of, if you're looking strictly in terms of the numbers, like if we're wanting to be counted and have the most community turnout, it makes sense to talk to those bigger communities first, right? Because we need to make sure those bigger communities have a good turnout. But at the same time, when I look at the diverse population that we have, we often also understand that we don't have a lot of representation from the smaller community groups. And so the balance for us as an organization, reaching out, talking to the communities, that how do we balance that trade-off and go after also, like, just to give you an example, some of the Pacific Islander populations, Cambodian population, they are smaller, they don't necessarily have the ethnic media representation and community groups to support. So as a community organization that try to do a lot of work, does it also for us to make sense to spend more time to make sure those specifically severely undercounted communities to have a voice as well? And so I think for me, I think that's the sort of big question for us as an organization. How do we balance that? Do we go with the bigger numbers, making sure we have a good turnout to be counted with the bigger population first, or do we also spend a lot of resources and time focusing on the smaller, undercounted communities and make sure they also have a voice? Because they may not reflect the big numbers, but they are also as important as other communities too. So,
thank you, Stanley.
Yep.
Thank you. Jacqueline, do you want?
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Garcia. I'm the founder and ED from Mujer al Volante, Women Driving. What I have here is a community census counter. We talked with 820 people in the last 3 months, outside of the markets, outside of the schools, especially in the South King County area. And what I want to say to you, what is one of the challenges to have a positive response from community about the census is that message is a continued message from all, I'm gonna say from everybody. I'm gonna say from media. I'm gonna say from everybody saying something. Community is afraid. Community has fear. And guess what? When we talk with 829 people, not only person say to be afraid of the census. I'm talking about the Latinx community in South King County area, and I've been asking around, what do you think about the census? And people saying, oh, I want to learn more, actually, why it is important, the census. And when I ask, are you afraid of the census? And people say, no, I refuse to fill out the census. It's different to be afraid. I'm refusing to do that because I'm concerned that maybe my information is going to be shared with ICE. But also I want to add something pretty important, that is, when you talk about the immigrant and refugee community is afraid to fill out the census because of ICE. You are generalizing that everybody in the Latinx community is undocumented, and it's not. There are a lot of people that are US citizens. There are a lot of people that are permanent residents, and especially as well in the refugee community. Our message, or what I want to ask the ethnic media, is to change the message, is to change at the personal level, when you have a mic in front of you, is why you believe is important the census. Why is super important. When it comes from you personally, people is gonna trust you better. If you're still repeating, the community is afraid of the census, community is starting to believe in that, and it is not. Could be partially, but community is saying, we are not afraid, we refuse to do it. So what we are doing outside of the markets, in the community events, and organizing and working with the community outside. And in our team, we have more than 10 mothers helping us to spread the word about the census. And we got surprised every day that when we gather at the end of the day of an event, they say, yeah, that's true, there is not fear around. There is concern, and we need to work together. And when the community members seeing us outside of the Latino market talking about the census, they still they got interested in learn more in order to participate. And so important, give the information to the community and let them to decide. Don't pressure them. But I'm gonna ask you personally, please don't repeat the fear and afraid message anymore.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Kamau, do you want to go?
Yeah, I think that was such an important addition to what we've heard, because I think for those of us who've been working on this for a while, myself, I'm Kamau. I help lead the Washington Census Alliance, a coalition of communities of color organizations that work in and are led by people of color. And I think oftentimes we share the high level the high level information, which is, this message of there's fear, but the way that actually appears in the lived reality of people is not necessarily that it's people refusing, and I think for good reason. I'm undocumented. I have DACA, so I'm very close. I hear a lot of family talking about this, and particularly when for you all in ethnic media, I think to understand that the fear is not materializing on its own, it's a result of there being lack of trust. So it's the outcome of people not being able to trust certain institutions. And I think people have talked today about like the administration, obviously, but also trust in mainstream media and trust in how their data has been used. Just thinking back to 2010, a lot of the people, like when I think of my parents that are working 2 jobs and are just kind of zipping past headlines, they see, oh, there's this, one of the credit bureaus had a data breach. And to them, they don't necessarily know that the data systems that the credit bureaus are using are very different from the secure systems that the Census Bureau is using. And you can know how the lack of trust or the lack of not knowing can translate to fear. Anybody can understand that. If you've ever been asleep and woken up in the middle of the night, and because you know your space, you can kind of half awaken, like half asleep, get out of the bedroom and into the kitchen for a glass of water, turn the lights on in the hallway, and then when you're trying to get back to your room, you turn the lights off in the hallway and you enter your bedroom that's completely pitch dark, and you realize you really don't want to knock your ankle on the corner of that bed, so you start walking very slowly and taking very small steps. And I think that's a lot of what we're experiencing when we're organizing in the community is people will not express their concern as fear, like what you were saying. They'll sort of slow walk, right? And what we want to do is get ahead of that so that they're not slow walking when they get the postcard in the mail in March to fill it out online, that the first time that they're sharing their concerns is with other people in the community who have the information to make sure that they know that they can trust the process. And I think the role of that media, sort of like in that metaphor, is to be the ones to sort of shine a light on it and have a positive message and have an editorial vision that's talking more about the benefits of the census and what is at stake, rather than refuting things. So oftentimes if you tell someone, don't be afraid, they might actually be like, oh, I wasn't concerned before, but now that you brought it up, maybe there's something should be concerned about. And instead, I think what the census is talking about, how much there is to gain from the community. The fact that in Washington State we gained a congressional seat that helped have more accurate political representation for communities in color, personally because we got a majority minority district in terms of federal funding. The programs like SNAP that were able to be equitably funded and the funding that we were able to get. So I think if ethnic media can have a positive editorial vision about the census and be leveraging that, and also be creative and take some risks in that, understanding that there's ethnic media, but our communities are also very diverse, and there's been fragmentation. So if you are an outlet, some people might not trust their outlet, but now people are also trusting like auntie who goes on Facebook Live and has like 2,000 people watching her talk about like the news of the week. Thinking about some creative partnerships that you could do with that, because actually the fact that those people are watching her is because she holds the trust in that community, and being able to leverage that to get out that positive message will be really important and help people like us in our organizations who are trying to do that work on the ground as well.
Thank you, Kamal. Thank you. And finally, but not least, Beto, can you speak from your organization's perspective?
Sure, thank you. Hola, ¿cómo están? I hope you guys are doing great. And so I'm representing Ventures, which is a microfinance and microlender that has been helping a small business for more than 25 years. And the perspective that we have is coming from a small business. So what I keep hearing from the community that we serve is really understanding what is the vision, what are we trying to do with this. So it's like really understanding that right now we're going to start counting people, but the effect of this census is going to come in 10 years or 15 years. So really, like, people doesn't really get it, that just get counted is going to make an impact of 10, 15, 20 years. So first of all, start understanding what is the vision, what is the strategy, so how we're going to get there, and then what is the business plan. So we are really thinking about, and this is all business because that's what I do and that's what the people that I serve. So these individuals are really start asking me like, yeah, I can count, I can do this, but what is important for me to get counted? So really understand the vision, and when I say the vision in business, is like how is going to look like our community in 20 years. So if we don't get counted today, so our community is not going to get healthier, it's not going to get more economic mobility, economic opportunities, all the things that we really want to change, because it's not going to be funding. So what I want to invite to all of you is like, how do we are going to communicate that vision? How do we envisioning to have our region to look like? And how can we, Seattle, Pacific Northwest, be the model of our nation, which we are already doing it, but really understanding that piece. So this is coming again from a small business perspective. Also, I think a small business can play a very specific factor on this. So small business owners need to have employees. So if we don't really have investing in economic development, economic opportunity, and economic development has multiple layers. So when we talk about economic development, it's like thinking about like we're just building companies, businesses, making better systems to create wealth. But we need to start with the layers of the bottom of how this is going to work. So that's what these resources and federal money can come to help us to play with, like, for example, CDBG money, like the HHS money that it helps to empower communities specifically of color, and how can we create this program. So that's what Ventures does, and that's where we get a lot of funding from federal, city, state, because we have been counted. Like that last census had an impact, so we got these funds, and now we can make an impact. So for me, that's the perspective. They're really kind of how this group can communicate the vision of the future. So how is that going to work? Playing, you guys have the voice of communicating that vision. And I totally what everybody say here, like, don't repeat about the fear. It's more like how can we create a optimistic, positive message that bring people in, don't take them out, because they are already in and they are here. So it's a different way of how do we utilize our language. So telling the story in a better way. So that's what I keep hearing from my community that we serve in business and economic development and microenterprise.
Thank you. Well, we've heard many different perspectives and opinions about what are they doing to do census work and what's the message. Is there any lingering thought that you want to share with the audience about what is your organization's message? We are going to be moving on later into conversations and discussions in the table from you all, so I just want to make sure we have enough time. But is there any lingering message that you'd like to share with our audience today from the group?
One thing that we've been doing very successful, and this is part of the task force, that's what I was invited to the mayor to be part of the Census 2020 with the city of Seattle, is like co-branding. So co-branding could be very, very powerful. Of the lingering of where Ventures is using is that this is not just a message from Ventures. This is a message of another 20, 25 organizations, and when your community, they could be fear or they could be not trusted. Mostly that is not that they are fear, but they don't trust. But when they see another 25 different logos of community partners, that's powerful. So that's something that we are really trying to do, that this is not the message just from Ventures, it's a message from another 25 nonprofits, government, ethnic media, etc. So that's something that we are really utilizing.
Great. Anybody else? Jacqueline.
Yes, what we said to the community is, yo cuento, tú cuentas, todos contamos. Primero cuento, luego existo. The first I counted, be counted, and then I exist. Because it's very important when we talk with the people and I ask them, raise your hand if you arrived to the US in the last, or in less than 10 years, and many people. And then they have children in the last 10 years that we are not existent. Even me, I arrived to the US in 2011. So right now, I don't exist in US, and I'm a US citizen. So it's super important to explain to the community that. And something that is working perfect to get the message is, we ask them, do you pay taxes? And they say, yes, when you pay taxes at the different levels. So you already pay taxes. If you don't fill out the census, that money going to another place, to another people. You want to keep your money working for you in your city, in your town, in your state. So don't let your money go to anywhere else. And that works perfectly. So when people see this, the community tabulator, and they ask, what is that? And we say, it's the number of people that we are being counting and tracking, and guess what? If this amount of people don't fill out the census, this is the amount of money that we will lose in South King County, and there are millions. And people say, oh, no, I don't want my taxes going anywhere. I'm gonna fill out the census. So that's the type of conversations that the community needs to understand better what is for and what is important. Another thing that I want to add is that when we talk with immigrants and refugees, we always think that the only things that they care is about social services. It's super offensive to be thinking only on that way, because you say, oh, if you don't fill out the census, get what? We will not have funding for the food stamps, for the Head Start programs. We need to talk in a better respectfully way with our own communities and talk about, it's so important, you already pay your taxes. It's different to say, if you don't fill out the census, we will not have food stamps for your family. Totally different. We need to learn to be respectful, and we need to learn how to spread a positive and optimistic message all the time to being successfully promoting the census.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Let's please give them a big round of applause. Thank you for your time.